It's time to go back. How far back in time? To the 1980s. It's time to look back in the catalog of Marvel Comics. Further than the 90s this time. It's time for Marvel in the 80s. And tonight we're talking about Wolverine by Chris Claremont and Frank Miller. That's right, the 4-issue miniseries Wolverine, the first solo book for a fan favorite character, Logan. And really elaborating in on this character. First of all, let's talk about that team. We got Chris Claremont, Frank Miller. They came up with this idea while they were driving back from San Diego Comic-Con. They started talking about the character of Wolverine. Frank Miller said, I don't really want to do anything about a berserker. All that Wolverine that he knew was that he was just this berserker kind of guy. And Chris Claremont told him, no, he's kind of like a failed samurai. He's got this Ronin, quality to him, and that really obviously appealed to the sensibilities of Frank Miller. The artwork is amazing. You got Joe Rubinstein doing the finishing here, the inking, and I really like his work on top of Frank Miller's breakdowns and pencils. And the coloring by Lynn Varley, and I cannot remember the other colorist. There's 2 colorists in this book, which I think is interesting, and it's hard to pick out who did what, but I really like this book. I have not read this in years, so this was really fantastic to revisit. I revisited this in the Wolverine Omnibus Volume 1. Look at that amazing picture of Mariko. So the basic story is this. Wolverine finds out that Mariko, the love of his life, who had been introduced in the Claremont X-Men stuff, she's getting married. So Wolverine, what does he do? He heads straight to Japan, and he's like, what the hell is up? He's got a secret agent friend. He's kind of like his Felix to his James Bond, if you know what I'm talking about. And he finds out that Mariko's been married to this dude, and he's beating her, right? And it's an arranged marriage by her father. Her father's like corrupt. He's using his head as this familial clan to like consolidate power in the Japanese underworld. And dude, her husband is just a piece of shit, and Wolverine wants to kill him, but he's got to show honor for Mariko, right? Even though he just wants to take care of it, right? So then he gets challenged to a fight by Mariko's father, who of course is this like Japanese crime kingpin type character, and Wolverine's taking it easy on him. In fact, this dude won't even use a metal sword on him because he says he's not worthy. That leads to the thematic material of what's going on in this book. This is the first time they're really trying to dive deep into the character of Wolverine, and they're taking him through the ringer here. He starts high, he goes so low, and he rises back up. So in this fight, the whole point is to show that he has no honor to Mariko and to just bust him up. But he gets saved by this mysterious woman named Yukio, right? So Yukio, who has a major crush for Logan, saves him. They get attacked by the Hand, right? Turns out the Hand works for Mariko's father, right? So you got all this kind of stuff going on. By the way, I think this is the only double-page spread in the entire 4 issues, but this is just majestic. This looks amazing. Then you move on, Yukio and Wolverine, they're fighting against the Hand. They team up with each other. He's still hung up on Mariko. Turns out that Yukio works for Mariko's father. So she's actually been tasked to kill Wolverine, but she's starting to fall for him. And so then you have this conflict that starts getting brewed up, right? Now another fight between Wolverine and the minions of Mariko's father. In front of Mariko, she sees him go full on berserker. All hope is lost at this point. So then we go into the 3rd issue where Wolverine is just done. He realizes that he's messed up. He's a monster. He's an animal. He's no good. And he's just going to wind up bumming around with Yukio, basically sleeping around, getting into bar fights, all this kind of stuff. Then the Hand shows up again. But now the Hand is also after Yukio because she is not fulfilling her mission to kill Logan. She's actually, shacking up with him, doing the deeds, somebody gonna knock in her boots. All of that jazz. But he in a moment of getting knocked the fuck out, he says, Mariko, and she just kicks him and leaves his ass there. I love it. Also notice some of the interesting panel composition and design layout from Frank Miller. Lots of use of negative space, and Chris Claremont, who gets so criticized for being an overly verbose writer, there are moments where it looks like it, but it flows so freaking well. And he's been, of course, in the 80s, worked with some of the best artists, including Frank Miller and Joe Rubinstein here. But his best friend, his Felix to his James Bond, got killed by Yukio. So now he's on a mission, hunting her down. Look at that page. Look at the coloring. Look at the background. Come on, y'all. That's amazing. He hunts her down. Then he winds up fighting against the Hand again, coming up against Mariko's father. Some great choreographed action sequences here. Frank Miller does this the best. He did this amazingly in his Daredevil run, and it's on display here. And at the end of the third issue, Wolverine realizes, you know what? I still got honor. I'm still a man. I'm going to stand the fuck up and do what's right regardless. Great rendering on that face right there. Then we go into the next issue, and it's just such a slam bang fantastic book, man. A great finale to this whole thing, though it does kind of end rather abruptly. We'll get into that. So Wolverine gets a bunch of weapons. He's going to go and tear ass against the Hand and against Mariko's father and do what's right. And in this whole shebang, Yukio shows back up, trying to take care of Wolverine. She winds up killing Mariko's husband, so now she has freed Mariko to have a relationship with Wolverine. We'll get to that in just a moment. Notice the composition there again. The panel layouts, the design. Then we got a final battle between Mariko's father and Wolverine here. This time he does deem him worthy of having a metal blade, and it's a great choreographed, great widescreen fight that we see in Frank Miller's type stuff in this era. And dude, the way it ends, he just puts his fist up to his face, and then that panel where you just get the sneaked. Come on. That's amazing. He's worried now that he's disgraced to Mariko, but she says he dishonored the family name. I'm the leader of the clan now. You did what was right. And it ends with him sending an invitation to his wedding to the X-Men. And of course, it continues on into 2 random issues of the X-Men. Spoilers, the wedding doesn't quite work out. Dude, Frank Miller, Chris Claremont, this was such a great book, a great defining moment for the character of Wolverine, a great journey, and a really solid art, just really great artwork. The way it's rendered, expertly done, freaking fantastic. So I read mine in this Wolverine Omnibus right there. I've never had the original issues. They used to be affordable, not so much anymore. This is, though, it builds the connection of Wolverine to Japan. It establishes out more of this tragic romance with Mariko, which is teased, but then really kind of goes here. The character Wolverine was kind of two-dimensional until this book, and this book gave so much for Claremont and other writers, including Larry Hama, to pull from in the Wolverine solo series going forward from 87 and onward. It was smack dab in the middle of this. I'm loving this omnibus, by the way. It's kind of bridged out chronologically. Right after the Wolverine issues, it has the 2 issues of Uncanny X-Men where the X-Men show up for the wedding, which, of course, doesn't go down. But what a great book, man. And I was watching the cartoonist Kayfabe. They did, it was Ed and Tom were on that one. And they were talking about how this is kind of like the undersung Frank Miller work. Everybody always kind of puts it on the back burner compared to, say, Daredevil or his Batman work or things like that, right? But the art is really freaking good in this book. And when you add in the idea of the influence of that conversation that Frank Miller and Chris Claremont had on that car ride up from San Diego Comic-Con, those 2 minds coming together to craft a story that not only started filling in some of who the character of Wolverine is, right? And he's not quite the stoic Wolverine yet. And I mean stoic in the true, meaning, right, of stoicism, right? This is the start of that. This is where he makes that commitment. I love the book. It's a great journey, a great look. The first Wolverine solo series, I freaking love it. I'm going to give that book a 4.5, you digs. What do you give it? Let me know in the chat, in the comments down below. And this has been Marvel in the what? Marvel in the 80s.